Hey guys, welcome to a very special episode of Here, There, and Everywhere. It is Friday, November 28th, and I have just watched all 9 parts of the Beatles Anthology remastered documentary. I have a lot of comments about some of the changes that were made. There were quite a few changes. Not much to say negative. I have a couple notes, but I'll mention those in just a second. But overall, a fantastic project. Watch it for the concert footage alone. I'll talk about this in a second. They did a fantastic job with the concert audio and footage. But overall, I give it an A, maybe even an A+. So let's dig in. So first of all, the Beatles Anthology is my favorite documentary of all time. It's my second DVD copy here. I've worn out this copy, the first DVD copy, my VHS copy, and I actually watched parts 2 and 3 when they aired in the mid-90s. That's how damn old I am.
The Beatles Anthology, brought to you by Betty Crocker Sweet Rewards.
Yeah, but this documentary, it's never been on Blu-ray. It's never been certainly in 4K. And to see it like this was just an astounding experience.
15 before I'm ready to sag. Get to the top.
The video quality absolutely needed this. The audio also, absolutely incredible. Especially the concert footage, the Shea Stadium footage, the Shea Stadium audio. I jumped out of my seat. It was that damn good. First of all, I think this struck a lot of folks. The title card that said "In Loving Memory of John and George" during the credits. It's hard to see that and not get a little bit emotional. That was nice to see. Number 2, there were quite a few modern graphics and scene transitions. A spinning record for "In Spite of All the Danger." The montage with the van trip across England and hitting all the cities had some 3D signs, which I thought was fine. Very neat. Nice way to modernize that type of a montage. This is kind of strange, but there was a third font for all the little subtitles in the history of the project. The original version on VHS had like a kind of fancy, I don't know if it was copperplate or whatever font. The DVD had kind of shitty subtitle font, but this one has the Peter Jackson font, same font from Get Back, just in white. So nice little nerdy OCD change that folks like us might notice. And there was also a cool transition of the Beatles logo when it changed from Beetles to Beatles. Nice little way to illustrate that. Also, every album had a short segment, which was quite nice to see. And there were 3D graphics, that kind of 3D cutout effect used to show studio pictures. Very cool. Obviously, that type of technology didn't exist in the early 90s, or if it did, it was in its infancy. Nice to see those kind of modern touches to a classic documentary. Number 2, the audio.
You know, we wrote them, we recorded them, we play them every day. What do you rehearse?
The audio on the dialogue has been cleaned up really well and tastefully.
On this tour, we don't get much time, to do anything. On this tour, we don't get much time, to do anything.
AI has made audio mixing and audio fixes much easier, for better and for worse. I use it on our podcast to clean up old documentary audio. And the tool that I use, at least, the publicly available tool, allows 2 changes. One is to remove background noise, which is fantastic. If there's a hiss, if there's crowd noise, you can really remove that and hear only the person speaking. It's fantastic.
And I found out some guy had a Strat for sale, and I arranged that I was going to go first thing the next morning and buy it.
But the second thing you can do is use kind of a slider to improve the sound of the voice.
And I found out some guy had a Strat for sale, and I arranged that I was going to go first thing the next morning and buy it.
Now, if you use it too much, you sound like a robot.
And I found out some guy had a Strat for sale, and I arranged that I was going to go first thing the next morning and buy it.
Now, it sounds like whoever mixed the audio on this did a good job of keeping that slider in the sweet spot where it's improved a little, but not robotic. I did notice a few moments where there was maybe vocal fry or low dialogue. It did kind of sound a little wonky, but for the most part, very tastefully done. The audio on the dialogue sounded great.
There's just more people here because they're bigger stadiums. We normally play in theatres in England. There's just more people here because they're bigger stadiums. We normally play in theatres in England.
I thought it was really neat that in the studio montages, there was a lot of studio chatter I had never heard before.
Right, George?
She's got a ticket to ride.
There were also a lot of new lines added throughout the documentary. a John quote about the song How Do You Do It and having to record it and not being too pleased about it.
It forced us to do a version of How Do You Do What You Do To Me.
There were a few jokes from George added. The line about how many Beatles does it take to change a light bulb, and the line about the Queen not having hit records. So great to hear more quotes from George. There is a nice acknowledgement from Neil about how bad they sounded in Japan. It was nice to hear some honesty about that. In my opinion, the worst the Beatles ever sounded, at least live.
Everybody suddenly realized they were out of tune or singing out, they had to get their act together.
And there was a nice little segment about George not remembering the second Shea Stadium concert, which was in the book, but it was nice to see it actually in the documentary.
You mean we played Shea Stadium twice?
It was just getting all blended here.
Okay, I don't ever remember going there twice.
Some new segments were added too. Some new clips in the I Wanna Hold Your Hand segment referencing Bob Dylan thinking the lyric was I get high and not I can't hide.
He thought I Want to Hold Your Hand was when it goes, I can't hide. He thought we were singing I Get High, you see.
More openness about drug use like that, especially in the Rain segment. John saying he was stoned out of his mind when he took the tape home and tried it in reverse. For I Feel Fine, there were some actual photographs and discussion about the Gibson J160E.
I had this electric acoustic guitar, and it would feed back.
Paul referenced it as the Everly's guitar, but we knew what guitar they were talking about. There was a little bit of that in the original doc, but it was extended here. And as a gear nerd and obsessive about the musical construction of these songs, I wish we'd gotten more of that, if anything, but it was nice to at least have a taste of that. A second taste of that type of discussion was A Day in the Life. We actually get to see Paul illustrate the final chord and how to mic up the decay of that chord, which wasn't in the first doc. And again, would have loved a whole documentary just about the musical construction of these songs.
And that was just one of the little things fascinated me, so I kind of brought that to the session. I said, how about still there?
Some other elements have been added. John's demo of Yellow Submarine, which I love, was put in. We heard that on the Revolver Super Deluxe. Some dialogue was extended. John's quote about being in the eye of the hurricane was lengthened. There was a great little quote on I Am the Walrus that wasn't in the original doc.
If you think it was good, keep it. If you don't, scrap it.
My favorite structural change was in the build-up to I Want to Hold Your Hand. The original doc had Paul just saying, love me do, flop, for me to you, flop. This version actually intersperses clips of the songs, and then when they begin kind of building up to we needed a big hit to get big in the U.S., that's when it shows the outtakes of the I Want to Hold Your Hand session. Originally, they were in an earlier clip that kind of showed bloopers, a blooper reel, which in hindsight is kind of out of context in the chronology of the episode, but now there's some dramatic tension built of the Beatles wanting to take over America and building the song that would do it. And as one of my top 5 favorite songs, I heard some new studio chatter and outtakes I had never heard before, and I've heard all this shit. So now, the controversial changes, things removed from the new anthology. Number 1, I think we knew this one was coming. John's humor was removed for obvious reasons.
Clap your hands. Clap your hands.
Number 2, George's thoughts on French audiences in 1964. There was a very specific reference removed, and we'll put in a clip now.
The audience, at least on the opening night, all seemed to be boys shouting bingo. And hanging around the stage door, all seemed to be a bunch of slightly gay-looking boys shouting bingo.
Also a really small, interesting change when they're talking about Magical Mystery Tour, the movie, and John is shoveling the spaghetti. They've removed the word fat to describe the woman.
Me that stands out is the one of John shoveling the spaghetti onto the woman's plate.
It was interesting they even went that minuscule in the changes they made to update the doc to the current era. So now to kind of wrap it up, my favorite moments, and this is subjective, these are my opinions. Number 1, and above all else, the reason for me that justifies this whole thing, Shea Stadium. I got a bit emotional because of how good the mix is. You don't just watch it and hear it. You feel like you're there at the Beatles concert. The bass hits you in the chest. The drums are clear as day. The best mix of Shea Stadium I've ever heard, especially that opening number, Twist and Shout. I jumped out of my seat. It was so good. And not just Shea Stadium. the Nowhere Man performance in Germany. In the original, you can hear that George's harmony is very flat. In this one, they fixed it. I think they just turned the volume down on George, separated his harmony and turned it down. I don't think they auto-tuned it, thankfully. But on the whole, a concert performance I already loved sounds much, much better, in my opinion. Also, the footage. The footage looks incredible. The motion smoothing takes a little bit of getting used to. In the very first segment when they showed John in the Cavern Club, it was a little uncanny valley. The upscaling, the motion smoothing, it's very different than what we're used to. But frankly, I liked it. I was looking for the little artifacts, the AI changes to people's faces and gear, and I know in one of the promotional ads I saw that Ringo's drum set, the bass drum anchor, looked a little bit weird and blobby. It didn't have the form of a bass drum anchor, but during the doc, nothing bumped for me that was too significant. I'm sure some folks may have concerns, but I thought it was fine. But what really stuck out for me from the get-go was the clip of The Girl Can't Help It. I was blown away, man. Like, that looked absolutely phenomenal. I kind of want to see the whole movie now. It was crystal clear. Little Richard looked amazing, that scene. Right at that moment, I was like, wow, we're in for a real treat here. This looks phenomenal. Also, the remixes. We had not had a remix of Beatles for Sale, of Help, of Rubber Soul. When I heard rock and roll music, hearing that bass really hit you in the chest, I would love to hear the audio of that. If someone could extract that, I might do it myself. The night before, never been remixed. The bass sounded fantastic all over. Bass and drums sounded phenomenal. And one of my favorite things was seeing Paul's backgrounds in 4K. Paul went around the world during his interview portions. He was on a tugboat, famously, fireplace, a studio, a home studio. There was, I don't know if you caught this, a small shot of, I think, the very first interview where they did just Paul on a couch. And having seen some of the outtakes of that interview, what I think happened is Paul wasn't happy with that footage, because if you look at that original interview, you can find it on YouTube, he retold the same stories in new, better-looking locations, especially on the tugboat. So I have a feeling he didn't like the way he looked. He thought it was boring. And you can actually see the first round of interviews for each of them was in a studio. And as the documentary continues, they get more and more exotic. We have George in a mansion. We have Ringo with the LA skyline behind him. And of course, Paul inexplicably driving a tugboat. But it was neat to see that little addition of Paul on the couch, which I had never seen before. If I had any criticisms, and these are very tiny, the original had the Blackpool Night Out performance of Ticket to Ride. This one didn't. It just showed the music video, tiny thing. There were some pictures of the Revolver session during the segment on Rubber Soul, but they did kind of blend those two together, so not a big deal. And then All You Need Is Love had a strange mix. The vocals were kind of buried under the orchestra. I thought that was weird because we have so many good mixes of All You Need Is Love. But again, those are three very minor quibbles. Now, last but not least, Part 9. I just watched Part 9. It just ended maybe half an hour ago. I've had only a small amount of time to digest it. My biggest critique, there wasn't a lot new. As a Beatles nut, I was hoping for 50 minutes of brand new footage. I would guess 30% was brand new. 70% you can get on the special features disc of the Anthology DVD. All that stuff in Abbey Road with the three Beatles, it's there. It's even longer on the DVD and more uncut. But what I got, that 30% of new stuff, I absolutely adored. It was more goofy. It was nice to see the Beatles actually enjoying their time reunited. In the original, in the doc and the special features, it's a bit solemn, a bit more serious. It was nice to see more personality.
Like a little birdie.
I wish we got the entire hour of the Beatles recording the new songs. We got maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15. But again, what I saw, my eyes were peeled to the screen. The highlights for me were Real Love, obviously. That little acoustic, informal run-through, Paul, George, and Jeff Lynne. It kind of hinted to me a theory I've had that Jeff Lynne may have played more guitar on these sessions than we thought, or maybe even contributed musically to the songs. My favorite clip was George with the banjolele. Amazing to see that actually being recorded with Paul on the piano. I always thought it might have been a mix of the banjolele and the piano. They sound so similar, and now we kind of have visual confirmation. The original solo for Real Love, or at least George working through it, different guitar than I expected. It's not Bernie Hamburger's green guitar, completely different guitar. Now, I don't think he used the guitar in the new Anthology clip to do the solo. It's a working solo, and you can see in the Real Love music video on the green guitar, his phrasing matches completely with the solo itself, but it was great to see at least some attempt at an earlier solo. It was also cool to see a clip of Paul on the jazz bass. There is a electric bass clip on Real Love. It's buried, but it is there, and it was nice to see that actually being filmed. Big disappointment, not a lot about Now and Then. Not a lot at all about Now and Then. I wish we'd seen some more, but it was cool to see a little bit of new footage. And then Free as a Bird. It was very cool to see the Beatles playing along to, I think, Jeff Lynne's working demo. I think, the click track and John. I had never heard that before. I think it had just been talked about. That was amazing to see. And lots of goofiness. You can tell George and Paul were having a great time. They were relaxed. They were goofy. And again, the original footage was very solemn, so it was nice to see some Beatles personality there. Some final thoughts. I think all the changes respect the original doc and bring some new honesty to it. The aesthetic changes are phenomenal. The video looks great. It's upscaled to 4K without looking weird for the most part. And I think, at least for the concert stuff and the remixes, fantastic. You get to feel what it's like to be at a Beatles concert and not just see it or hear it. And that alone, I think, is worth the price of admission. I do have a feeling of melancholy watching this. I think we're kind of getting to the end of the road for new Beatles content. Frankly, I'm not sure what else there may be. I don't think Carnival of Light is worth anything. I think it's probably a weird, bizarre outtake that's going to disappoint if it ever comes out. I'm not sure if we'll see more super deluxe reissues. Maybe Rubber Soul one day, but I doubt we'll get a Hard Day's Night or Beatles for Sale. Hope I'm proven wrong. And if this is it, if this is the grand finale for the Beatles, I think it's a great note to go out on. The Sam Mendes movies might be great. Who knows? I have low expectations. We may hopefully get more outtakes in the future. I know I'd spend a ton of money on that. But I'm very glad this came out. It was delightful. It looked amazing. I'm going to rewatch it a ton of times. Hopefully it comes out on physical media. But I wanted to thank Apple, Peter Jackson and his Wingnut team, whatever they did on this, and especially Paul, Ringo, Olivia, and John's estate. This was a fantastic project. Great job. And I'm sure there are a lot of Beatles fans very happy this Thanksgiving weekend. All right, guys, that's my instant review. We'll talk about this more in a couple days, but hope you enjoy the doc. Bye.